Hello, everyone, and welcome to what is a really useful video focused on how to set up a CI/CD pipeline within your Plotly and Dash application. So this base setup is going to allow you the ability to take your code and you'll be able to upload it directly to Dash Enterprise, and this will allow you to work within your own local machine and to be able to deploy within Dash Enterprise using CI/CD pipeline. Now, with this, there is a lot of information involved with CI/CD pipeline. As you can see here, these are the notes of some of the stuff that we're going to be covering in this video, and it could be a bit intimidating, which is why this video is really useful, as it is going to give you a breakdown of every single task within this outline, and we will do it together with a new Dash application. So with that, we're going to jump into the code. There's going to be a few pages that we're also going to need open. So initially we have our development environment, which is my IDE, where I have a just basic app.py file that is working in local development. I'd like to bring this over to Dash Enterprise and within a workspace. So there are a few like tabs that you should also have open. I would recommend having your GitHub open, the one that you work within. Keycloak is another one that I would have open. Then I would also look for this repository, which is DE deploy. This is a great resource for what we are going to be doing here and setting it up. And then we also have our Dash Enterprise account. So with that, let's dive into it. First thing we're going to do is we're going to install the requirements, assuming you probably already have the initial requirements of your application already established. But one that you want to make sure that you include is going to be gunicorn. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to run pip install dash what other dependencies that you have. For me in this application, I'm using leaflet. So we're going to run that and we're going to let that finish out. Another thing that we're going to do is we're going to jump back into our Dash Enterprise account. We're going to go over to create a new Dash app. And then within this, we're going to use this option, deploy an existing Dash app. And in order to do this correctly, we're going to go back over and I would reference what you name your project. And I would name the project and the GitHub repo and the Dash app workspace all the same. So for this one, it's going to be pipeline example project. So I'm going to go back into my workspace and I'll just call this pipeline example project. Now, one thing to note whenever you are creating an app within the workspace is it's best not to use underscores when creating a project name. It's best to use dash lines if you're trying to create space, or alternatively, you could just, for example, use camel case. So with that, I'm going to click on create and we will create a new Dash application instance and workspace to start with, okay? Now, because we are already installing our requirements and all of that, I'm going to copy this line. This is going to allow us to install the Dash Enterprise libraries within our local machine and our IDE project. So copy that and then go back into your development environment, and then we're going to paste that in. And we're going to let this run, and it's going to download all of those libraries. So my Dash application is based off of an older version of Dash. So because I just installed a new version of Dash, there are some changes that are needed within it. We don't need app.run server. And as I deleted, we don't need dash.dash. You could just declare dash from import all, and that will work. Another thing that you're also going to keep in mind is that you need to open up the server. So in order to do that, you could create server equals app.server, and that will allow whenever you go to deploy for the Ubuntu to see where your Dash application is running, and it will allow the pipeline to finish. Outside of that, we could change debug mode to false. We don't need to declare a port, so we can just allow it to automatically choose the port. And then with that, there are a few files within our application that we could start creating. So go into your application, and then I would create a .git ignore file. So there are some cached files and other stuff that you don't want included. It's not going to directly break anything, but it's just good practice to do. And ideally, what you're going to want to do is you're going to not include the environment that you're working within. So, and then the .pyc files, underscore pycache, ds store, and the .env. So these are the base or get ignore files that you'd want to include within this, so that they are not included whenever you go to commit. The next thing that you want to do is you want to create a new file, and we'll create a proc file. So this proc file is needed whenever you go to deploy within the workspace, as it tells GUnicorn where the server is located, and it's as simple as a one line web and then GUnicorn app server. And then the next thing that we want to do is we want to create a requirements.txt file, and that's relatively simple. All we have to do is run a pip freeze, and then we want to point to the requirements.txt file. So if we run this, it's going to automatically create that for us. The next thing that we want to do is we want to go over here, and we want to create within the directory a .github folder, and then within that folder we want to create another folder that's going to be workflows. And within that workflows folder, we would like to create a new file that's going to be called deploy.yaml. Now we'll go through this one line at a time, but initially what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to define the name, and you do it like so. And then you also want to declare on the push what branch are you going to be looking at, and then what pull request are you looking to achieve. So it will look like this. Next, you'll want to define the jobs. So this is going to go through these steps that will allow you to run the pipeline. And the jobs will look like this, where you are deploying, you declare the name again, and it runs on an Ubuntu server. And then you want to run through the checks, where it check output code, and then you point to actions checkout, and then v3 name again. You want to deploy using de deploy actions, and then plotly de deploy. And then with the hosts, we're going to need to define these as secret variables within our project and our repository. So this is the base setup that you'll be using. But moving back into our Chrome browser and looking at these tabs, there's a few things to set up. So we'll dive into Keycloak first, because I think this is pretty useful. So within this, it's best practice to not use your base Plotly account as a runner for your CI/CD pipeline. It's best practice to create a account specifically to act as the runner for your applications and for your CI/CD pipelines. So to do this, Plotly and Dash Enterprise uses Keycloak to manage their authentication system. But what you want to do is you want to go into Keycloak, and you want to go to add user. And then within here, you provide a username. So we could just call this DE runner. So that's going to be the name of this. And then we will create, and you don't need anything else in regards to it. So once this is created, then you're going to be brought up to this runner account. First thing that you're going to want to do is you want to add credentials, which is going to be setting the password for the account. So we could go over here and we could set the password. For this case and for me, I'm going to turn temporary password off because I'm just setting it directly through here and I won't need to change it, but that will at least create that. The next thing that you want to do is you're going to want to go over to role mapping, and then you want to assign a role to it. So when you are at the assign roles to this runner, you want to go over to filter by clients, and then you want to change it to filter by realm roles. And for this instance, we're going to check these three and see if it works. But ideally, you don't want to make it an admin. And ideally, all you're trying to do is you're trying to point to it as a authorized user for your Dash application. So this should suffice. So with that, we have that created and set up, and we can point to this DE runner. So the next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go into our GitHub. Within our GitHub, we would like to go to create new repository. And then within this, we will give it a repository name. So for our example, we'll give it pipeline dash example dash project. None of this other stuff really matters. Just set public or private depending on what you're trying to do with this. And then just create the repository. Now within this, there is a settings page. And I guess before that, we can go up to our user profile, and then you want to go over to your settings. And then on the left-hand side of the screen, you could scroll down and you could find developer settings. Now within developer settings, you're going to want to go over to personal access tokens, and then you want to go to tokens classic. Once you do that, then you're going to see a screen that looks like this. I've blocked out my access tokens just to protect my information, but you want to generate a new token. So you'll see this button, click on that button, and then the next page that you're going to have is going to be a new personal access token. Now you're going to want to create this and name it whatever you would like. Now you could set in an expiration date, so that is defaulted to 30 days, but you can extend that out. It's best practice not to have no end to the expiration date, but with this being a runner and you probably not wanting to maintain checking up on it, it's not the end of the world if you have no expiration date. The only other thing that I would like to note is with the select the scope section, all you really need to do is to click the repo section. You don't need to give it, and you shouldn't give it, any other permissions in regards to your GitHub. All you want to do is to create this access token so that it can run events from your repository. So click on repo and then create the access token. And once that's done, you'll be brought back to this screen and you will see a URL or an API key associated to that access token. So copy that, save it in a safe space, and then go back to your GitHub. And whenever you're at your GitHub, then we'll go back into our repository. So I'll go to my repositories. I'll go to this new project that I just created. We'll go over to settings, and then we're going to scroll down to secrets and variables. So to set up the CI/CD pipeline, we're going to need 4 things. So we're going to go into actions, and then in the secret section, we're going to create a new repository secret. Now, when you click on that, you're going to see this page, and you need to define names for it. So going back into the code, you'll see what we're doing here. But we have DE host, DE username, DE password, and the access token. So for the DE host, we're going to copy this, and we're going to come back, and that's going to be the name. So we need to define where the host is located. To do this, we're going to go back into our workspace, and at the top, you're going to see this URL. Now, you don't need everything. All you really need is this section. You want to go back into your secrets, and then you want to paste this. So this is going to be our host. It's going to be whatever the main section of your domain within your workspace is. So just for my instance, it's going to be Austin AWS Plotly host. Yours will be a bit different, but it will be practically the same. So add that secret, go over here and create a new secret. We'll go back into the code. The next secret is going to be our DE username. So I'll go back over here. We will paste that. I will go to Keycloak. As you can see, we created this DE runner account where we created the account name and then we set the credentials and the password. So I'm just going to copy that name that I created. We're going to put that in the secrets and I'm going to add it. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go over here and I'm going to go over to the code and we're just going to get the DE password. So that's going to be the name, and then for the password, you apply whatever password you used when creating that account. So I'm going to do that for myself. Then we need one last secret. So we're going to go over here. We're going to go back into the code, and then this is going to be GitHub Access Token. So we just created that. If you recall, whenever we went into the settings and we created that access token. So all you want to do is you want to paste that access token that we just created together in this section and then add it. Awesome. So by the end of it, you should see that your repository secrets should include all caps, DE host, DE password, DE username, and GH access token. All right. Now, with that set up, we are nearing the end of getting all of this established. Now, we can go back into our code and we can just check everything real quick. So everything looks fine on this end. We have our files, which we've already set up. The requirements.txt looks good. So the next thing that you're going to want to do is add the files that you're trying to bring into your workspace. So that's typically going to be your app.py, your requirements.txt, your proc file, your git ignore, your GitHub workflows, deploy.yaml, and any other pages or dependencies that you might have within your project. Then you're going to run a git commit, and then you're going to push it. So all we're going to do is, because I'm working within PyCharm, I'm going to go down to the bottom of the terminal. I'll do a git init just to make sure I have a clean init. Now, because I'm working in this PyCharm IDE, I could just click on my project and then I can go to git add, and we can add those changes to our commit that we're about to create. And then I can go to commit, and then all I want to do is just make sure that I have just these. So this looks good, and then I could just type in initial commit for the message, and then I could commit and push, and then I needed to define the remote. So I'm going to go back into my project where I have all this set up, and then I'm going to go into the example project. I'm going to copy this location for where the project is located, and then I'm going to paste that URL right here. So the remote has been defined, and then I can push. Now, what we're going to see happen is that if I refresh, it's going to create the project. And as we can see here, it's going to start the pipeline. Now this pipeline is going to fail, and we will address that in another video and optimize this a bit further. But this is set up for where it stands. So we could go back into the project. We could go back into our workspace within dash enterprise. We can copy this command, which will allow us to authenticate our host within our workspace. So if we go back into our terminal, and if we paste that command, then it's either going to bring up a tab within your browser asking you, do you want to authenticate for your workspace so that you can bring your IDE stuff into the workspace. Once that is done and you accept that, we can go back into the project, and then we have this command. So we can copy it, and basically what you're going to want to do is type in prior ls. Just make sure that you are in the right location. So you want to see this type of file system where you're at the root of your project. So whatever your project is, you want to be able to see these files. So any dot file you're not going to be able to see, but as you can see, we can see the app.py, that's there, the proc file is there, and the requirements.txt is there. So this is successful. Next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to paste that command, and then within that command where the path is located, because we are in the root of the project, we can delete this section, and then you could put a dot. So this is going to take all the encompassing files within our project, and it's going to upload it to our workspace. So when we run that command, it's going to ask us if we are sure we want to update it, and then we will just say yes, and then it will start the publishing process for our dash workspace and application. So just give it a second. If you've done everything correctly, you'll see that it will start pushing your app to Dash Enterprise, and it will give you a link to view that. So we can click on that link, and then we can see that it is successfully reaching Dash Enterprise, and we have this building process starting. So the build process is specifically focused on the proc file, the requirements.txt file, and your Python version. Once this is established and it says that the Ubuntu server can successfully reach the dash application, then it will start going into the logs, and the logs are going to be focused on the app.py file and your application code within your dash application. So think of builds as overarching structural support, and the logs is going to be the UI, the callbacks, the app file, the pages, and that type of stuff. So we'll give this a second to run, and then we can see this as all deployed. So after a moment of waiting for the deployment, we have that message saying that the build and the deploy was successful in our terminal. So that is amazing. And we could jump directly into our workspace in Dash Enterprise. We could see that the build was successful. It showcases all the logs, but it says that it is completed. It also says that the application is live. We can go into the logs of the application and we can see that it is hosted and it's listening on the port and it booted without an issue. We can click on the link to the application and here we are. We have our leaflet application, which just showcases the best video game ever, in my opinion. But regardless, this is a difficult task and you should be proud of yourself for getting to this point, and you did just achieve something amazing. You can now work in projects from your workspace and you can deploy them directly within Dash Enterprise. So this only needs to be set up once per project. And if you make changes, for example, in this project, and if you want to commit those changes, all you need to do at this point is you need to run that de deploy dot name and then point to that project. And that will allow you to deploy to that workspace. So as you make changes to the app.py file, you can push those changes and they will be reflected and directly deployed within your Dash Enterprise workspace. So with that, I hope that you find this useful. If it is, like, subscribe, and look at our playlist on other subjects and topics within Dash Enterprise, as there's a bunch of tips and tricks and tutorials which will help expedite the time needed to solve some of the difficult problems associated with just development in general. But with that, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.